The Nikon ZR is the most surprising and interesting camera that I've tested for some time. If you told me 2 months ago that I would be buying a Nikon camera, I would have said, don't be ridiculous. But that's exactly what I've done. So why did I do it? And do I regret it? This review was almost entirely filmed using a lone camera, thanks to ProAV and Nikon, during a week away to my favourite place in the world, other than my home, the Greek island of Skiathos. I love this place so much, and many of my videos, reviews and documentaries were filmed there. But a warning, if you don't like cats, why not? Then this won't be the video for you. The stray cats of the island were what I was filming and photographing most of the time. So there's going to be a lot of gratuitous cat shots over a lot of what I talk about. But, you know, that's better than having my face pop up on camera constantly, that's for sure. But I will do the occasional on-camera bit like this, so you can see what people look like with the ZR. The Nikon ZR is actually one of the most enjoyable cameras that I've used in a while, for a simple yet big reason. But it does have a number of issues though, and some are more serious than others. I will of course go through them in this video, as well as talk about all the many things that I really like about it. Almost all of the issues should be possible to address with firmware updates. Well, not all of them. This is the first collaboration between Nikon and RED, which Nikon bought last year. The R in ZR stands for RED, in case you didn't know. The flagship feature for most people, not for me, is that it has internal RED RAW. This makes the ZR the smallest and most affordable RED camera ever made, with a price of just under $2,200, which truly is astonishing for such a feature-packed little powerhouse. I've had internal RAW on many cameras over the years, but I almost never use them due to the file sizes. My main cameras, the Sony FX3 and Alpha 1, have fantastic compressed non-RAW codecs. Even if they had internal RAW, I don't think I'd use them. The ZR has 3 different types of internal RAW: R3D NE, Nikon RAW, both can shoot up to 6K 60p full frame, and ProRes RAW HQ, which maxes out at 30p. There's also ProRes HQ and 10-bit 420 H.265, both can shoot up to 5.4K. But like its RAW sibling, ProRes HQ only goes up to 30p in that resolution. All of these codecs shoot in 4K up to 60p with no crop, and up to 120 frames per second in R3D, Nikon RAW, and H.265 with a 1.5 times crop. There's also 240 frames per second in 1080p, and it's actually pretty good. All of these modes still record audio as they're not conformed in camera, so they don't play back as slow motion. You need to do that in post. There is no open gate mode, and very strangely for a camera marketed as a cinema camera, no DCI aspect ratio or dead-on 24p. There's also no anamorphic D-squeeze currently either. The RAW codecs easily look the best, but they all have pretty large file sizes. I'll go into more details about these later on in the video. So because of this, I mostly shot in H.265. Look, if I had the media and enough SSDs, I probably would have shot more RAW than I did. Whenever I go to Skiathos, a big part of each day is feeding as many stray cats as I can. And there are always key areas which I go to, places that have become important to me over the years. The most special is Laney Beach on the west of the island. This is where I first met Harriet and Sevi 7 years ago. Many of the other wonderful cats that I've known over the years on Laney Beach have passed away, but I still make sure I go and see the ones who are still there, especially beautiful old girl Ronnie, who wasn't looking great. She was recently diagnosed as FIV positive and had some infections in her mouth which she's been treated for. And during my last visit 2 years ago, swearing I wouldn't and couldn't adopt anymore, I met Archie by the bins at bus stop 13 on the main road. He was so special, and I knew his life would be very short if I left him there. Bus stop 13 is one of the places that I made sure to go to each day to feed the strays. When I met Archie here 2 years ago, there were around 25 cats. Now, there's only about half a dozen. Thankfully, these stray cats are mostly in much better condition than you see on most of the other Greek islands. This is thanks to the fantastic charity, the Skiathos Cat Welfare Association. I've worked with them since 2018, making documentaries to highlight their work, to help raise money for them, and photographing the cats for their calendars. Every day, volunteers feed as many strays as possible. And they also run trap, neuter, release programs year-round. This is essential to ensure the cat population remains manageable. The charity also makes sure any stray that needs medical help gets it. The number of kittens they take in, often dumped in bins or on the side of the road in a bag, is heartbreaking. They do everything they can, but often it's too late. The ones that make it are put up for adoption, but many won't find their forever home, and they can't be released at this point, so they stay at the charity. They all are still available to be adopted, and I wish more people would. If I could, I would adopt so many. Like the super handsome Portocali here, who sat on my lap purring away the moment I got to the charity. Like the beautiful Charlie here, who's been waiting for over 2 years for her forever home. And this little bundle of joy, Jude, among so many others. If you're in the UK or the EU and want to give one of these amazing cats at home, please contact the charity via their website. The link is here and in the description. And if you can donate anything to the charity, I would be so grateful. They're only able to do these amazing things thanks to donations. So thank you. You can see all of my Skiathos cat films on my One Man, 5 Cats YouTube channel. There's also smart cat product reviews and videos about my catio. Make sure you check it out. So what made the Nikon ZR such a joy during my Skiathos trip? It's the LCD screen. 4 inches, 1000 nits with a resolution of 3.07 million dots. Most of the time I'm filming low down, so it was perfect. When I do this with my Sonys or other cameras, it sucks because the screens are too small. They're not high enough resolution and too dim, and especially in bright sunshine, making it very hard to see. But here, I could always see very clearly what I was filming. On one trip out to film the stray cats, I took the ZV-E1 with me, basically a cheaper FX3 with much better autofocus on a body that overheats easily. It's a great camera, but coming from the ZR, it was a huge shock. And yes, because of that screen. And it was the last time that I used it there. As you can see, the animal autofocus did a great job, but I will go into this more later. If you know me, you'll know how much I go on about the need for an EVF. The ZR doesn't have one. Did I miss it? For filming the cats? No. But when I had to film people or anything else at head height, I immediately missed it and often ended up just holding the camera lower than I should, as everybody does. Without that point of contact against my face, the camera starts to feel heavy. The ZR is essentially a Z6 III, which has an EVF. It doesn't have the new accessory shoe, has a smaller screen, and it doesn't have red RAW. I've never used that camera, but I'm sure the EVF is very good. Whilst I love the LCD screen, I wish it were like the Lumix S1IIs and Sony A7R5 screen in how you can position it. There you can tilt and flip it out. With a ZR, you can only tilt it when it's flipped out. And if you've got anything plugged into the side ports, they will get in the way when you try to tilt. Those ports are mic in, headphone, USB-C, and painfully, a micro HDMI. I hate micro HDMI, they're so fragile. Look, I get that the space is limited there, but I wish they could have found a way. That being said, I can't see myself needing it that much, as the LCD is so good. The only time I think I'm going to use it is if I wanted to use this, the superb Kinefinity Eagle eViewfinder. What I'm really happy to see is that you can set the HDMI of the ZR to mirror the LCD screen, so you can have both the output and the LCD screen showing you full info. This is really important because the LCD of the ZR is needed for much of the camera's control. You will need a cage to mount the EVF, and this Smallrig one comes with an HDMI USB-C clamp, which is essential for that micro HDMI. It's a decent cage, gives you a few mounting points at the top, but the best thing is it has a nice big grip that matches the style of the ZR. You can also buy just a grip and base from Smallrig, and it does need it. The lack of a grip on the ZR is a big negative. I don't know why they did this. It makes little sense. And because of it, the card slots are actually in the battery compartment rather than on the right hand side where they should be. It's a bad place to keep them, and it will cause some people issues when swapping media when you're on a tripod. There's 2 slots in there, one CF Express B and a micro SD, of all things. You can use the micro SD for stills and video in H.265, but that's it. Like all of Nikon's cameras, there's no dual slot backup recording for video, which is a shame. But to do it with this camera, you would need 2 CF Express B slots, and that would make the camera generate a lot more heat. The body is compact, it's a tiny bit wider and taller than the Sony FX3, but not as deep. The main reason the FX3 is deeper is it has an active fan to keep the camera nice and cool. Now, I've not had any overheating issues with the ZR, which is impressive. Would it last as long as the FX3 can? No, but that's to be expected. Because so much at the rear of the ZR is the LCD screen, there's not much in the way of buttons, and on top of the camera there's only 3. You have to use the touch LCD screen to access a lot of functions. This is fine for some things, but not for others. I find custom buttons essential on my other cameras for quickly accessing important functions, especially for autofocus control. I've programmed the custom buttons to what I can, but even as it is, I can't actually map everything that I want to them. Likewise, the quick info menu won't let you add some things which I think it really should, so you are quite limited. Now, there is a second quick menu that you can bring up, and it has very important tools in it, but this is not customizable. I couldn't put the video autofocus sensitivity or speed settings on any custom buttons like I do with my Sonys, not that there's any spare buttons. I also couldn't put them in the I menu. This is a big problem, as quick access to sensitivity is key to getting great results with video autofocus. To change it, I have to stop recording and go into the main menu. Nikon, please let us assign functions that are in the custom controls menu to custom buttons and I menu. Thank you. Using the touchscreen for things like ISO is horrible. It's so easy to accidentally change it. If I had another custom button, I would assign it to that. The joystick is very fiddly. Pushing it in to select something is hit or miss. Most times it just registers as up. One of the weirdest quirks that surely will be fixed with firmware is the way View Assist works for log in R3D versus the rest of the codecs. So I've set custom 2 to View Assist so I can turn it on and off quickly. This works with all codecs except R3D. When using that, I have to use the second quick menu to access View Assist there. And that works. It makes no sense and has to be just a firmware fix away from being addressed. Another weird thing is if you are using View Assist in R3D, focus peaking doesn't work. You have to turn it off to get it. That needs to be fixed. Focus peaking is essential. One of my favourite functions on the camera is the zoom rocker. Not for zooming, by default it's set to punch in focus check, and it's great. But if you're shooting RAW, you can only use it when you're not recording. Another quirk. I do find the menus to be odd. I am getting used to them, but they aren't as intuitive as I think they could be. Having some video settings in one place and other key ones in another is strange. I also think that you should only be able to change video settings in video mode and photo settings in photo mode. The centre inside the Nikon ZR is almost certainly the same one as inside the Lumix S1 II, 24 megapixels and partially stacked, but they both have very different processing and that makes a big difference. But both have very good rolling shutter performance. Gerald Undone, of course, has got a great video about both cameras' performance with rolling shutter and dynamic range, so make sure you check that out. The dynamic range is all over the place, depending not just on whether you shoot RAW or not, but on which type of RAW. R3D has been measured to have the best dynamic range, but even those figures aren't exactly great, certainly not even close to the claimed 15 stops of dynamic range. In reality, did it cause me any issues? There were a few times when the shot was so challenging that it couldn't be handled by any codec, but it didn't really matter. Letting highlights blow out sometimes is fine, and I can't imagine my Sony cameras being able to hold everything here either. The ZR thankfully has waveform for exposure, and I'm really happy to see that it measures the log image, not the LUT. There's also zebras, but no false colour. Audio is one of the camera's highlights. It's in fact the first camera to have 32-bit float audio recording without any additional accessories. No matter if you're using an analog microphone using the 3.5mm mic in or the internal mics, you can record in 32-bit float. This is fantastic and should be on all cameras. There's 3 internal mics, although I can only see 2. The quality is good, but they are very sensitive to the slightest bit of wind. Now there is a wind reduction option, but it destroys quality, losing all low end and most of the mid-range. It's internal mic and I have wind reduction turned off. Wind reduction is now turned on the internal microphone. Smallrig make a little dual wind muff that fits over the mics using the hot shoe, and that works a treat. Sadly, I only got this after my Skiathos trip. It has something called Ozo Spatial Audio, where it uses the internal mics to change the pickup pattern. Front super directional, front all directions, rear and binaural stereo. And I love binaural stereo. Whilst I have the wind muffs now, I'm most likely going to just use the Nikon ME-D10 microphone that I just bought. This connects electronically to the accessory shoe, much like the many Sony mics do with their MI shoe. This gets past the pain of the 3.5mm jack getting in the way of LCD screen rotation. Although if you're using headphones, it doesn't help. So this is what the Nikon ME-D10 microphone sounds like on the front and the pure mode. This is what it sounds like in the rear setting. I'm behind the camera, of course, in pure mode, and this is what it sounds like in focus mode in that setting. There's IBIS in the camera, which they call vibration reduction, VR. It's better for getting more stable handheld shots than for walking. It's decent, and I used it all the time. Normal mode is stronger, and it's really best for photos, because it's not great if you want to move the camera. There's an additional electronic stabilization option, and it's actually not bad, but you can't use it in RAW or in 5.4K in ProRes HQ or H.265, only in 4K. Now it doesn't come close to Lumix's best-in-class IBIS, but it's about the same as the Sony one. You can only use lens optical stabilization, if it has it, in combination with IBIS if it's a native lens. Because if you try with an adapted lens like here, this is what you get. So let's talk about codecs, because they are all over the place. I'm going to throw lots of numbers at you. I'm not going to cover the H.264, that's only 1080p, and the H.265 8-bit doesn't shoot log. The main problem with the codecs is that the bit rates are either too low or mostly too high. They all have 4K or either 5.4K or 6K, but I do strongly recommend sticking to the higher resolutions than shooting in 4K, as they all look much better. 10-bit H.265 is the most problematic codec, both in 5.4K and 4K. As I said, this is what I use the most in Skiathos, as I just didn't have enough cards or SSDs to cope with shooting just RAW. It uses a variable bitrate, which is very common, but not in the best way. The bit rates on their website show very high numbers, but you are highly unlikely to get anything close to those with normal filming. The point of a variable bitrate is to save on space, but ZR goes way too far at times. This shot came up as just 50 megabits per second. So what's going on? Well, the shallow depth of field, stabilization, and the baked-in noise reduction make it easier on the encoder. So to test this when I got back home, I did some simple shots to see if I could provoke a high bitrate from the H.265. First test, my lowest so far, just 30 megabits per second for 5.4K 25p. Increasing it to 60p, I got 50 megabits per second. Now on Archie, a much more interesting subject, at 5.4K, it increased to 86 megabits per second. When I put the ISO up to the max of 51,200, stopped down to increase the depth of field, and turned off stabilization, I finally got a very high bit rate. In fact, it went up to 404 megabits per second. The problem with such huge variations for the ZR is you never know how much time you have left on the card. From a highest bit rate of 404 megabits per second to just 0.5 megabits a second when I put the lens cap on. ProRes HQ is ridiculously big. It's a target variable bitrate codec, just like ProRes RAW. It's aiming for a figure, but sometimes it goes over and sometimes it's a little under. For 5.4K 25p, I was getting around 1500 megabits per second, and it made very little difference if I had a shallow or deep depth of field, or how noisy it was, and even with a lens cap on, I got 1250 megabits per second. For such a huge difference in bit rates between it and the H.265, they look remarkably similar. Of the three RAW codecs, ProRes RAW HQ has the highest bitrate, and the highest that I was able to get in 6K 25p was 3400 megabits per second. But I couldn't provoke it to go as high as the quoted 4170 megabits per second on the Nikon website. Why they didn't put in the non-HQ version of ProRes RAW makes no sense. I hope they will add it. R3D-NE is the new Nikon 12-bit version of Red RAW, and there's only one compression option. It's a constant bitrate of 1590 megabits per second for 6K 25p. If you put the lens cap on and just film black, it's still the same bitrate. The highest bitrate for it is at 6K 60, which is 3780 megabits per second. Nikon RAW is also a constant bitrate and is the same size as R3D in the high setting, but in the normal setting it drops by half. So 6K 25p is a much more manageable 810 megabits per second. I can't tell the difference between the high and normal. Because of this, most of the RAW that I've shot has been in this mode, and it looks great. I would love to see an option for R3D to match this bitrate. I think we need to take a short break from these bitrates and frame rates. I do, that's for sure. How about some more cat shots? No? What about dogs? You want people? You want happier people? More people? Is this enough? These shots are of course all from the sponsor of this video, Storyblocks. I've been using them for years to fill holes in my edits for shots I just don't and can't get. But it's not just video, there's music, sound effects, templates, images and more. And everything on Storyblocks is 100% royalty free and pre-cleared, so you don't have to worry about that side at all. You get unlimited downloads for one predictable subscription cost. To get started, head here or click the link in the description. Detail-wise, the RAW codecs all look great in 6K. I would avoid the 4K full-frame RAW ones, as they look like they might be line-skipped. I think the main reason the 8-265 and ProRes HQ don't look as good, and in fact look so similar to each other, is because there's some overdone noise reduction being applied in all ISOs, and you can't override it. It's not just taking away detail, but the organic texture of the image. I really hate in-camera noise reduction. In the night shots in Skiathos town, which I mostly shot in either 8-265 or ProRes HQ, everything looked too clean. There is a high ISO noise reduction setting in the menu, but it's disabled when shooting in log. I did try it and all it does is just add even more noise reduction. Low light performance is very good thanks to the dual base ISOs, the low being 800 and the high 6400. That's just one stop below the high of the Sony FX3. And you can shoot up to 51,200 ISO in log. I really hope that Nikon can add noise reduction control for the non-RAW codecs, as it would make the image look so much better. Hello, you're too close. When shooting an R3D, you have to choose low or high base ISO before pressing record, then you can't change it. But in the other codecs, you just cycle through them. And you have to be very careful not to have your ISO just below the high base, as it will look very noisy. If you just push the ISO up to the high base from there, it instantly cleans the image up. 12,800. 25,600. 51,200. Let's bring it down with the iris. As you've seen in the on-screen graphics, I use Sony E-mount lenses for most of my filming, and I use the Megadap ETZ21 Pro Plus E-mount adapter for this, and it worked so well. Because the Z-mount is so big and the flange distance is so short, it's the only one that can be adapted to use in other mirrorless systems lenses. I did have the occasional issue where the IBIS went haywire. Other than that, I was shocked at just how well it worked. Autofocus was really good, seemingly as good as the native lens. I didn't run any scientific tests, but you can see in the footage throughout this video just how well it performed. But I did get the occasional glitch. If this adapter didn't exist, and it wasn't as good as it is, my interest in the ZR wouldn't have been very high at all. The last thing I need is to buy a whole new set of lenses for a new camera. But with this adapter, I don't have to, and with seemingly few compromises. The lens I used the most in Skiathos was the Samyang 35-150 f2-2.8. It has such fantastic range, fast aperture, and the autofocus worked really well with it. Is it as good as the Tamron version? No, I don't think so, but it's very close and it is cheaper. I also had with me another zoom lens, the new Sigma 20-200 f3.5-6.3. Yes, it's quite a slow lens and it doesn't stay at 3.5 for long, but that's a hell of a range for a lightweight full-frame lens. I wasn't able to knock the background out of focus much, but it's a super convenient lens to walk around with. But when it came down to it, I almost always chose a Samyang due to the much faster aperture. But it's so much bigger and heavier. I was really impressed with Nikon's video autofocus. Whilst it's not as sticky as Sony's, it seemed to grab the eyes of humans and cats really well. Last but not least is the photo mode, and it's mostly very good in that mode. The biggest issue for me is the lack of mechanical shutter. Whilst this sensor's readout speed is nice and fast, it doesn't make any difference when you are taking photos under artificial light, where I often had a real banding problem. I couldn't easily see it on the LCD while shooting, and the only thing I could do was try to match it by adjusting my shutter speed. But that's a cumbersome, slow thing, and you often miss the shot. The lack of a mechanical shutter is a big deal for me for a stills camera, but this is of course a video first camera and I accept that. As you've seen, there's quite a few quirks with this camera. In fact, there's some that I haven't covered in here because there's just too many. But there's also so much to love, so much that I did decide to buy one. I do hope that Nikon address my points in this review. I'm not the only person saying these things. With the most important thing for me is to give the camera some noise reduction control, so the H.265 and ProRes can look as good as they should. For now, shooting in RAW is really the only way to get what the ZR is capable of, and what I will have to do when I need that full image quality. But I'm going to be shooting in the NRAW normal due to the file sizes. Despite this, I will still continue to shoot in H.265 and probably ProRes LT when it's added, but only for filming myself and B-roll for my YouTube videos. Well, and of course my cats. Filming them with an LCD screen, so nice. So basically, the thing I love the most about the camera is the screen.